We are so excited to welcome Adrianna Bach to the podcast today. She is a model, influencer, and most importantly, an incredible mom to her daughter, Stella Rose. She is ready to openly share about her postpartum experience, from postpartum anxiety and depression to her experiences with body image in an industry that propels the bounce back culture. We've been trying to schedule this podcast for a long time, so we are thrilled to be here. And just for context, we met from Carly Kramer, who is the founder of Beekeepers Natural, incredible brand. She was also on the podcast, so definitely listen to that. And we met in January, and Adrianna really helped us with our drive for people who lost homes.
Yeah, you were
with
so
the fire.
helpful with coordinating so many brands for us to give to those affected by the fires, which was amazing.
So thank you for that, because I know our audience really appreciates that. You were key to get the away bags.
The away bags were huge.
And we could put everything inside. So
it was incredible how quickly you guys mobilized. And I was like, all right, how can I support and use my network to support? So thank you guys for doing it.
You were amazing. So this is how we met, for context. But we really just want to dive in, because I think from the outside, you obviously are stunningly beautiful. You are on the cover of so many things, modeling for years and years. But you also had this like crazy, intense postpartum experience, which I think sometimes from the outside, people are like, oh, she has it all figured out. She's beautiful. She's a mom. She's traveling. And then on the inside for you, you actually had some really intense struggles. So would love if you can share a little bit about how you ventured into motherhood and how was that experience for you?
Yeah, totally. I think that's why I find that I have such a responsibility to be vocal, because I know how things appear. We all know how social media is a highlight reel, and I feel a responsibility to use my voice and a passion for really using my voice now and kind of just being open about what happened so that hopefully it can support other women. And so, I've always wanted to be a mom. That was always very clear to me. Stella came a little bit earlier than expected. My modeling career was at a high, and I expected a couple more years before my husband and I, who were getting married, and we got married in 2023 in the fall, and I thought, okay, I'm going to have a couple more years of work, and then I'm going to slow down. But I'm a total type A control freak. I never would have slowed down. So actually, Stella came at the perfect time. And my pregnancy was incredible. The first few weeks of the pregnancy, I was having a lot of anxiety as it relates to health and her health, which I'm sure that you guys can relate to.
Very common, yes.
First trimester fears, and I have a long history with anxiety. And so I realized pretty early on, hey, this is Stella's first home. My body is Stella's first home, and it's feeling like an anxious place. And I don't want her to have her first home be an anxious place. And so it took about a week, and I'm pretty determined when it comes to shifting mindsets. And it took about a week of journaling and just really strong intentions centered around, we got to lose this fear and create this peaceful place for her. And I did, and the rest of my pregnancy was really incredibly peaceful. And I worked until 17 weeks secretly pregnant, which was intense, because I was doing a lot of activewear jobs and some swim jobs. Wow. And
kudos to you.
Yeah.
Did anyone ever say anything, or was it easy to hide?
I think towards the end, like my final shoot, which was an activewear shoot, I think towards the end, people, they knew. I had been working with these clients before. They knew my body. They'd seen my body. But no one said anything. Everyone was very professional. But it was also kind of weird how my body, when I was on set, it was almost like my belly kind of went in, like without my trying to suck. It kind of went in. The second I was done with the shoot, it would just, and I got home, it would come out. It was hilarious.
She knew to
She knew. She was like, I'm helping you out, Mom. I know you don't want to stop working yet. And then from 17 weeks onward, I basically didn't work. And that was the first time since I was 17 years old that I wasn't, traveling the world or on set all the time. And I really embraced it. And I think because my pregnancy was so peaceful, I really wasn't prepared for postpartum. And yeah, I mean, my postpartum experience was, I would say that it was a build-up. So the first couple weeks, I was still in this baby bliss, and then everything started kind of creeping in. I had a lot of trouble breastfeeding, and I had really, really wanted to breastfeed. And I had a lot of trouble with my milk supply. And I felt a lot of pressure, which I want to dive into, from certain mom groups and communities to breastfeed. And so I felt like an absolute failure, that I couldn't get the milk supply where it needed to be. And so that sort of guilt shame spiral from the breastfeeding led me into such an anxious and depressed state that I stopped eating. And so that's a vicious cycle because you need to nourish yourself. And during my pregnancy, I was incredible at nourishing myself with, incredible food and vitamins, supplements. I took such great care of myself, which is my standard. But after she came and after, I started to struggle with this breastfeeding, it all kind of went to shit. And I lost a lot of weight, and then that affected my supply, and it became this vicious cycle. And there were other factors as well, that led to this kind of buildup of what was then diagnosed as pretty severe postpartum anxiety and depression.
Wow. So I heard you mention that you were in the mom groups and you felt, defeated because, so explain a little bit about that. Were you in a certain mommy and me group where, people telling you you should be breastfeeding? Was it more societal pressure in general? Was it this vision you held up for yourself? Like, what was it, do you think was the main trigger for you feeling this way?
So I think it was a real true combination of all of the things that you mentioned. Definitely societal pressure. I think being in Los Angeles and being a part of the wellness community, I would say that there was an additional pressure. Certainly pressure for myself because it was something that I always envisioned doing for an extended period of time, and also a way to bond with my baby. And so I was really let down by my inability to have that experience. But the thing that is the most saddening thing to me is a couple of the different mom communities that I was in. It was almost like the messaging was breastfeed at all costs. I was told, I heard from a certain doula that you should triple feed, as long as you need to. Triple feeding is when you're breastfeeding, you're using the pump. Now I kind of forget because everything is a blur, but you're pumping, you're breastfeeding. And then I also had this, I don't remember what the feeding mechanism was, but it was basically a tube that was attached to my breast that I had to tape to my nipple every time I breastfed, so that when Stella sucked, she got some milk that was like some formula milk as well, and it was supposed to increase supply. And it was just like every time I fed, it was a whole operation. It took like 2 hours to feed just because of all of that. So the messaging was like triple feed until you have success, and like basically breastfeed at all costs. And I think that a lot of the women in those groups just subscribed to that messaging. And then when I started to open up about my experience and my inability to, my lack of success, the craziest thing is that some women from the chat side chatted me. We didn't have private conversations prior. They side chatted me to tell me that they had stopped breastfeeding because it wasn't working for them for whatever reason, because their mental health was declining, and they decided that, it was either their mental health or their baby, or breastfeeding. And they feel better now. They're finally bonding with their child. And to me, the fact that people didn't feel safe talking in those communities, which were supposed to be supportive, but they only really were supportive of certain experiences or certain choices. And that really struck me. And yeah.
Yeah, you know what? It's really top of mind for me, the whole breastfeeding now, because I'm breastfeeding now. But with my first, I relate so much to what you're saying because I also had an undersupply and I wasn't maybe as much as part of the wellness community, but I did get that messaging from everyone around me. And it felt like all my friends had an easeful time with breastfeeding. And, you know, my friend would come over and she's pumping while at my house and I would see the milk just like flowing in ounces and ounces. And I'm just trying to get like 1 ounce from the pump.
So triggering.
So triggering. And yeah, I really relate to that. So you're definitely not alone. And I know that so many people struggle with it too. But for me, it was really the societal pressure, people's opinions. I felt like I was doing a disservice for her. But then the more I thought about it and the more stress I added, the worse my milk production got.
Yeah.
And I tried everything, the milks, the teas, the lactation brownies, all the things probably just made me gain more weight. But, you know, like nothing worked. And this time I have a lot less stress about it, which I actually think enhances my milk production. And I also feel totally comfortable using formula when I want to use formula. So it's just such a different dynamic now, but I felt so isolated and alone when I was doing it for my first time. So you are definitely not alone.
No, thank you for sharing that. And I've thought about that many times already. Like I hope to have more children and, you know, I hope to have a different experience and more success, but also I have found confidence in my ability to bond and nourish my baby in ways that don't necessarily come from my breast.
So how did you begin to process all that in real time? And then did it spiral you into more of a depressive state? Did you start using formula? How did that work?
Yeah. So pretty early on, I needed to combo feed because I didn't have enough. And she had lost a lot of weight. And that was making me really nervous and, of course, affecting my supply as well because the stress and whatnot. So I started combo feeding quite early on. And then, you know, from, I would say, a week and a half to 3 months, I had countless lactation consultants, you know, the luxury of being able to see countless lactation consultants and trying all the things, like I said, triple feeding and the supplements and acupuncture and drinking dark beer. I don't even drink beer. Like literally every single thing that I could possibly do. And, you know, nothing was working. And I think that in conjunction with some other factors as well, like it was just it was a buildup, right? It was just a spiral. And by 3 months, it was very evident to me that it was my mental health, like truly survival in a sense, or breastfeeding. And I remember at the time it felt like life or death, like the decision to stop breastfeeding truly felt like the biggest decision I was ever making in my entire life. But it was this one incredible, very well-known lactation consultant who said to me, I want you to know that I am the breastfeeding coach, and breastfeeding is obviously so incredibly beneficial and amazing if you can do it. But if what's happening to you is not okay and it's not healthy for your baby, and no amount of breast milk could make up for, you know, the repercussions of what's going to happen if you're not able to show up like you want to for your child. And she gave me that freedom. She gave me the permission to stop. And so that day I started weaning. And it took me like 1 second because I had no milk.
Well, it's so interesting because I feel like, especially as first-time moms, we put so much weight on it's like almost like a reflection of the kind of mother we internalize it.
And we make it part of our worth.
We make it a part of our worth. Mm-hmm. We don't realize that it's also probably taking away from our bonding because that does affect your mental health and your ability to be present. Yeah. And then we're out of that stage and we realize everything in motherhood is a choice. And okay, some people give organic everything, other people don't. Some people, you know, do special PT exercises with their kids to help them. And it's like, there are so many good choices for your children that you can subscribe to. And there are so many choices that are just fine as well, but maybe they aren't as, technically beneficial. But we're always going to have choices, and there's going to be areas that we're going to have to give and take. And that's what I've learned is like, we put so much weight on this one feeding aspect, but the most important thing is that they're gaining weight, that you're okay. And we kind of look back, and now we all laugh that our toddlers are like licking their snacks off the floor. And we're like, we were so concerned, but it's a real first time mom, like stress. I'm not invalidating a mom who's going through the second or third time, but it just gives us perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And I think the correct messaging is a fed baby, it's all a fed baby is a fed baby. Mm-hmm. And obviously, if you care this much, you care about what formula you're choosing. And, those choices are obviously going to be intentional. But you just do your best. We're just all trying to do our best.
100%. We have to support each other and not kind of point fingers if you're not doing something or not, because in the end of the day, you're right, fed is best.
Totally.
So after the 3 months, you decide to stop breastfeeding. How does your mental health kind of kick back in? Are you still struggling at this point?
So it's kind of hard to say, because at the 3-month period where everything peaked, and when I say peaked, I mean plummeted, which is that my postpartum was so severe that there were actually 2 days that I couldn't be around Stella. I went to my mom's house. Thank God for my mom, who has been, the most incredible support system. Oh, wow. Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Don't worry. You can cut that off.
I was literally like, babe, just don't call me for the next 2 hours. Call my mom if you need anything. And of course, we called.
That's so funny. Wait, where should we start?
There were 2 days when we couldn't be around Stella.
Oh, yeah. So just say, so there were actually 2 days, right?
Yeah.
So there were actually 2 days where I had to remove myself from my house, and I couldn't be around Stella because my anxiety was so high and I was so paranoid about being around her with that energy. Like, I was so nervous about my nervous energy and not wanting her to feel that or sense that I actually removed myself from my house, not overnight, but for 2 daytime periods. And I went to my mom's house, and she kind of like held me, and I laid on her couch and was curled in a ball. And I realized that because I've had such a long journey with anxiety and with therapy, I realized that this was different than anything else. And so I decided I need medication. Like, I need help. And so pretty much the same week that I stopped breastfeeding, I luckily found an incredible postpartum psychiatrist who led me to an incredible postpartum psychologist. And I started down that route of Zoloft.
How did you know that you needed it? You mentioned because you've had anxiety before and this was different. I think sometimes people think, oh, this is normal. This is just part of postpartum. Baby blues. And they kind of just like wait. And then it doesn't get better. So what were like the telling signs for you that, no, this is different and I need help?
Well, and now I know very clearly, right? Because I have the perspective of it and the space away from it. But it was just interfering with my life. Like, these deep, dark, anxious thoughts were truly interfering with my functioning. Some of the symptoms that I was having, I would wake up in the morning, I would feel quote unquote normal for 30 seconds. And then it would feel like 2 hands gripped my throat. Snakes would enter my stomach, and I would have this crazy physical sensation where I felt like I couldn't breathe and I was being suffocated. And alongside those physical symptoms were deep feelings of overwhelm, of thoughts that I had made a mistake, and that my whole life I thought that I was destined to be a mom, and I actually don't even think I'm supposed to be a mom, because how could I possibly be feeling this way when I have this beautiful child, in my arms? The overwhelm was the biggest. Like, I was just so overwhelmed. And I think that it's normal, right? Of course we're going to be overwhelmed when we have a baby, but I didn't want to get out of bed. I woke up, it's almost like the reality set in of the weight of the responsibility of having this dependent. And I just couldn't face it. And I still I still was functioning in life, people wouldn't have necessarily known. But to me, I wasn't showing up for her in the way that I knew that I could, because I've always known that I was going to be a great mom. And I wasn't proud of, I wasn't proud of the way that I was showing up for her, because I was just so in my head. And so I just didn't want that to consume me anymore.
I think hearing your story, as hard as it sounds for you going through it, it actually shows me that you did the biggest thing to show up for your girl, was to actually take ownership of what was happening for you and go on the medication that you need, because that's the biggest thing that you gave her, was her mom back, right? Your mental health back.
Totally.
So, okay, so you go on Zoloft.
Yep.
Does it kick in right away? Do you start feeling better?
No, I start feeling worse, which I knew was normal, though. I knew that could be the case. So it took me about 3 weeks to figure out the right dosage. And then within those 3 weeks, I ended up going too high, which I then had some weird physical symptoms from. And so it took about 3 weeks to find the right dose. And after 3 weeks, I started to feel a bit lighter. And it wasn't like overnight, okay, I feel like me again, but I was able to find joy in things that I would typically find joy in. And I was able to be around Stella and enjoy just being with her. And so, I would just say after 3 weeks, the old me started to creep back in. And I was really concerned and hesitant to go on medication, because I had heard that it can numb you out, which I'm a highly emotional person. It's part of my identity. I love to feel. I did not want to numb myself, especially at, such an important and beautiful time of life with this new baby. So I was scared of numbing. I was scared of using medication as a crutch and not dealing with the things. All of these things, it just wasn't the case. I just felt like me again. It gave me permission to feel like me again. I was not numb at all. Once the medication was stabilized, I was still able to do my life coaching and to journal and to meditate and use the other resources that I have always used for my mental health. So it was just another tool, but one that felt really necessary at the time. And I can actually say, as of a week ago, I am no longer on it. So I have
good for you.
Yeah, I've been weaning for the past 4 months because I wanted to do it in a really intentional way. And it's been a week of no Zoloft.
Wow. So it's funny because I was going to ask, how, I think a lot of people, one fear about getting on SSRIs is the weaning process. People hear that that's difficult. How do you know you're ready to go off of them, considering you don't know, what's being managed by the medication? And how were you able to, integrate that and know that you're ready? And, if you ever want to get off of it, how do you know?
Yeah. So I didn't know, and I didn't feel ready. But things felt more stable in my relationship, in my professional life. Certainly with Stella and with motherhood, things were and have and continue to feel more and more and more and more fulfilling. And to be honest, I wasn't sure. I was scared. The question was, what's underneath this, right? How much of this is medication? How much of this is, my hormones are starting to level out after 14 months. But I am a truth seeker, and I really wanted to test my baseline. I really wanted to know what was underneath. So it was kind of like starting to feel better and then kind of just wanting to uncover and more of a curiosity than anything else. And also a knowing now, like, I don't have a fear of medication anymore. So I knew that if I needed to go back on, I'll go back on, and it took me a while. There's such a stigma around medication. And it took me a little while to kind of release that from myself. And now I don't feel that at all. And I actually think it's so important to talk about it. And it's so funny because when I open up to people and I'm pretty transparent about my Zoloft journey, I would say half of the people that I know are like, oh yeah, me too. Or yeah, I'm on Wellbutrin, or I was. And I think it's so important to be more transparent about it, because there are resources that we have that we can use in certain times if it's, part of our value system, or if it's something that we feel like we need. But we need to give ourselves permission to do that, and other women as well. And we can't do that without talking about it.
100%. And we so appreciate you sharing that, because our whole podcast is about really making people feel less alone.
Yeah.
But at the time when you decided to go on the SSRIs, did you feel the same shame and guilt that you felt with the whole formula and not being able to breastfeed?
Yeah, I did. But Carly, there are a few moms that I really, really leaned on. 2 moms who were not even necessarily close friends prior, but were so incredibly supportive and formative for me during those times that made me feel like the stigma of medication shouldn't be. Basically, they gave me permission to go on medication. And so, yeah, sorry guys, I need to cut out this point because I don't want to talk about Carly.
We
Brian, take out the words Carly. Yeah.
Yeah, there were a couple of moms that really, I feel like, enabled me to feel more comfortable going on medication by sharing their experiences. And so I hope to be that person for other women.
Yeah, and that's amazing, because it goes back to the point of, like, if we were all to just talk about it, the breastfeeding struggles, the postpartum depression, like, people, first of all, would realize there's another way, resources. Like, for the mom who's struggling out there and that thinks that this is normal, like, it doesn't have to be.
Totally.
For the mom who doesn't have enough milk supply and is underfeeding her baby and thinks this is the best way. It's not. There's other ways. So I think the more we talk about it and normalize it, it's so important. And it's funny because the Mommy and Me classes, like, as you mentioned, I find they're meant for such support, but sometimes you can be met with the judgment and the comparison can actually be worse. And I think we have to go in with an open mind. Like, these mom support groups are amazing, and I think it's so important, but go in with an open mind that, like, you might leave feeling worse about yourself.
Wait, I want to add to that. And I think the reason behind that is because as a first-time mom, I went to all the Mommy and Me classes, but because I was not confident in myself, I would go to those classes and I would hear everyone's opinions and I would get swayed. But now I have a lot more confidence in myself as a mom, so I can talk to all these moms and they can tell me, you have to breastfeed only breast milk. And I'll be like, oh, that's great. But you know what? Not for me. I like to do some combo here and there, so I have a different perspective. So I think when you're a first-time mom, you're very vulnerable and you're very fragile. So exposing yourself to too much noise and opinions can actually be a detriment.
Absolutely. I think that was one of the big mistakes I made too, which was crowdsourcing. In the beginning, the first few weeks, I was really, really crowdsourcing every single mom that I knew. None of my closest friends have had kids or hadn't at that time. And so there were a lot of sort of peripheral moms or friends that were not as close friends. And I would just ask everyone the same question and try and see how many responses were similar so that I could gauge what the right thing to do was. And I think that, pregnancy started to really teach me this, and especially now postpartum, like, intuition and just trusting what feels right. And even now, it's funny, my mom and I got in a little argument a couple months ago because she was reading me at week, the milestones of are this. And she was mad at me for not reading these things. I'm like, Mom, I'm not like really reading the milestones. I'm kind of just letting Stella evolve and develop. I know she's healthy, knock on wood, and I'm nourishing her and supporting her and doing all of the things that I feel like I'm proud of doing as a mom, but like I don't feel like I need to be looking at the milestones and checking out, because that's crazy making for me.
Yeah.
And
we have a lot to say about milestones.
Yeah. Oh my God. And also I know that babies hit milestones at different periods.
Yes.
Like we're already anxious enough. Like even if we don't have diagnosed postpartum anxiety, there's definitely anxiety.
Yeah. It's a whole other anxiety no one talks about, is the milestone anxiety.
Oh my God. I'm like, no.
Especially when they're from age like 0 to like 1.5. I feel like there's so many milestones. It's like the sitting upright, and then it's the crawling and the walking. It's too many milestones.
There's so many check marks. And like, as you said, sometimes I feel like the boomer generation like is so caught up in, like, we can talk to our pediatrician. You don't need to, if they say something, but the boomer generation in particular is obsessive with, I feel like, infiltrating what they think is right onto us. And they get so afraid if we sway from them that we're parenting wrong and they need to take over. And I've noticed that from pretty much every adult that I've been, like, they need to be the parent. And it's like, we're now the parents. We've learned differently. There's new research that has come out. We'll keep this between our doctors. You are the grandparent. Like, sure, you can voice your opinion, but this is not a discussion. You have to respect my...
Totally. Amen. I love it. I'm gonna write that down and I'm gonna regurgitate it to my mom.
Because I've been there with my
best
mom.
Friend, by the way.
My mom too. She's my best friend, but I have been there with my mom, and we have had our disagreements with parenting. And like, I have had to say to her, Mom, like, I get it, but you are the grandma. I'm the mother, and like, you can't be upset if my view is different than you. You just have to support me.
Yeah, totally.
If I'm not harming, obviously.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
Which I'm not. But anyway, you were saying, the milestones, you're getting caught up. She wanted you to get kind of caught up in that. You set your boundary, which is amazing, that you weren't going to dive too deep into it.
Yeah. And I think now I want to talk about the importance of mom friends in this pivotal time, because aside from the Zoloft, which really helped a lot, it was really, I would say that mom friends, number 1, Zoloft, number 2.
Yeah.
And building this mom community, because as I said, none of my close friends had children yet at that time. And so it was really beautiful to build these really, really deep friendships with people that I knew, but on such an intense level as they guided me in my first few months. And so because some of the communities that I was a part of, I felt not seen or not respected in, and clearly that was experienced by other people, since people side chatted me outside of the group. I wanted to start building communities, my own mom communities that right now live on WhatsApp and somewhat on Instagram, but where people feel safe to communicate their varying parenting decisions and choices and preferences. And so that's kind of, my experience has led me to really feel passionate about creating communities where we can support each other, even if we don't make the same choices. And that, Carly, who was on the podcast, who you mentioned earlier, I'm working with her as her community leader in Los Angeles, because she's really so passionate about the mom space as well, and obviously has this incredible brand, Beekeepers Naturals. And so I'm helping her build out her mom community too, which is really fulfilling.
I love that. Yeah. Exactly.
We're all about the community.
We're all about the community, because it's made me a better person to have people around me that, instead of saying, oh, you shouldn't do that, everyone just like celebrates your choice. And it's such a refreshing perspective. And, we have girls in our community who, the baby comes down, they're like, I'm not breastfeeding, I'm starting formula from day 1. And they say it with this conviction. And I'm like, yes, like boundary, good for you. Totally. And it's like, we have to celebrate each other's milestones and decisions.
Yep.
it doesn't matter about our personal preferences. They didn't ask for it, right? You didn't ask for your opinion. They're just telling you something, and we need to celebrate that, because it takes a lot sometimes for that person to have come to that decision and to say it with conviction and to be confident. And so our role, I think, as moms is to normalize these type of conversations and to be supportive of each other.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. I think one of the biggest, lessons for me in pregnancy and now through postpartum is I'm much less judgmental than I was before.
Oh my gosh. The compassion, empathy, and less judgmentalness, however you want to say it, is on a different level.
It's crazy. Yeah.
It's like
it's a real gift.
Yeah, it's a real gift. And like, and on what you were saying about mom friends, it's like they are so important for our survival, because yes, we might have these amazing partners and husbands, but they will never understand what we're going through. And there is a level that I can just talk to my husband and he's like, well, what's the big deal? Just do this. And he has no idea that it consumes 99% of my thoughts. Like there's so many things that we go through as females, and it's just it's too matter of fact sometimes, and they just haven't been in our shoes. They have never been mothers. So connecting with other women who have gone through it, there's truly nothing more comforting in that. And sometimes all you need to know is that someone relates. You don't need to know the answer.
Totally.
You don't need to know
100%.
that they're like telling you, guiding you in the right way, but just you've been through it. Okay, that makes me feel 100 times better.
100%.
Just knowing that they're on the other side. To just watch them being on the other side.
Yeah.
That's sometimes all you need.
Yeah, I think sometimes, like, love my husband and all, but sometimes he simplifies it,
Yeah.
So it's like my baby was breech, by the way, from 22 weeks, and I tried everything.
She tried everything.
I became
sure.
obsessed.
Yeah.
The chiropractor, acupuncture, moxibustion, handstands in the pool. Like I literally tried the world.
I believe it.
Okay. I made my husband put the moxibustion stick to my foot with the fire every day for a month, and had to leave all the windows open. It was the whole thing.
Oh my
and my
God.
husband, bless his heart, it's okay, sweetie. Like, why don't you just not focus on this at all? And you'll have the C-section. It's fine. But in my head, it's like, it's not simple. I'm going to do everything in my power. And then I still had the C-section even because none of these things worked. But sometimes, and they mean it well, because he wanted to take away my anxiety and my obsessiveness of trying to flip the baby. But it was so simple in his head, but for me, it's like, it's so not simple. And for moms who get that feeling, I recently opened up about the whole experience of my pregnancy journey, and so many people wrote in saying they had similar things. And to your point again, it's like, the more we talk about it, the more we share, the more we normalize, and we allow for other people to share it, because it isn't simple. So you need the moms who understand, and for the other ones who are trying to be there for you, it's nothing against them. They just don't fully understand because they haven't been through it.
Yeah, totally. 100%.
So wait, one thing I want to touch on is the body image stuff, because you are in an industry that is the complete,
opposite of healthy body image.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like we all, we have our body image stuff that comes with postpartum, and then you're thrown back into an industry that's kind of looking at your looks 24/7. So how do you already struggled kind of postpartum. How do you re-enter to this career after being a mom?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. And I think I have to take it back to pregnancy, because during pregnancy, I think this was the second thing. So the first kind of coming to terms with, first I needed to work on my anxiety and not having an anxious home for Stella. And that was like the first big mental shift that I needed to have. And then the second big mental shift came in the second trimester, when my body really, really started to change in a really humbling way. Like I always had this, everyone always told me, you're going to be so slim and you're going to have like these big boobs, and you're gonna, like, I just had
the
this
all belly.
vision,
People
like,
love to
so
tell people
feminine, and like I have the smallest boobs in the world, like they're not even boobs. So I was like so excited to have breasts and feel so womanly. My body just was like, nope. And I gained, I think 55 pounds, but none of it went to my boobs. Like literally none of it. It was the strangest. It was just really, all I can say is it was humbling. And there was about a 2-week period where I was really upset about it. And I was just like, there's so much emphasis is always on my looks, but
Of
because
course.
of my career. And I actually have to thank my husband because we just started to kind of joke about things and we brought humor into it. And I don't know, within like a couple weeks, I was able to shift my mindset from like what is happening with my physical body? Am I ever gonna feel like me again? To a lot of acceptance and embracing it. And I don't know, it's just I really think that Stella gave me a lot of strength, like through her energy to make these mental shifts. But within 3 weeks, I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm eating ribs 3 times a week. I'm literally doing whatever I want. Obviously, still trying to be health conscious and nourish myself. But I put away all of my smaller clothes, like all my 24, 25 jeans gone. Like not only like in the back of the closet, like outside in the garage area. I don't know when I'm going to see you again. And I just had this acceptance of like, we're just gonna see what happens here. And it was so freeing. It was really freeing. I gained 55 pounds. I laughed about it a lot. Didn't know what was going to happen with work afterwards. And I think the interesting part, and not in a positive way, was my postpartum anxiety and depression led me to lose a tremendous amount of weight very early on. So I didn't have that experience of needing to shed the baby weight because it happened in a really unhealthy way that I wouldn't wish upon anyone. But it then was glorified from a career perspective as well. And now it's so funny because I've actually I've had a lot of confidence. You know, we all have insecurities, and I certainly have many insecurities, but I've never had really an issue with body image. It's just, I've never had an eating disorder. It's just not one of my, it's not one of the things that I've experienced. But after having lost so much weight, then been so glorified for my post-baby body, now I have a weird body image complex. Like I have a new weird complex that I didn't have before.
Because of other people's opinions.
Yeah, because of other people's opinions.
That's why I'm so hesitant to comment on, I do not believe in commenting on someone's weight because you never know what mental condition they were in in order to, you know, land there. Yeah. But we only look at the physical, we only look at the end result. So then all of a sudden, people who were struggling, they think they have to struggle to maintain that because that's now where their people are placing their value. And it's like, okay, well, I suffered to get there. And when I was happier, I was maybe 15 pounds or 10 pounds heavier, let's say. Well, if I want to be happy again, it's just this whole mental battle. And we've totally, I think it's so important that we don't comment on people's weight. Like, of course, you look great, you're glowing, you look amazing, you know, all these things. It's obviously pay a compliment, it's really nice, but to be like, oh my God, you lost all the baby weight, like, so quickly. Like, think about for a minute, like what, because it's not easy to lose the baby weight. So you really have to, especially if you are pumping or nursing, like, so you have to really be mindful.
Yeah. And I think it is important to note, though, that I would say, you know, I've always taken really incredible care of my body through exercise, through nutrition, supplements, pretty much everything. I'm really, really into external self-care. Now, postpartum has taught me to be better at internal self-care. That's for sure, because I realized that my self-care was pretty much geared solely towards the external. And now I would say that there's definitely more of a healthy balance with both. But you know, I did take really incredible care of myself during pregnancy. And after I gave birth, after I was cleared, I did start exercising again because it is so important for my mental health. Like, it's just number one for me. It's just like not even, it's the most important thing for me as it relates to my mental health. So it wasn't just my postpartum anxiety that led to the weight loss. It was really a combination. I always say it's stress and self-care. Like a combination of stress and self-care is what led me to be, honestly, the smallest I've ever been. But, you know, up until I would say a month ago, the people who know me and love me were like, Adrianna, you got to put on weight. You have to put on weight. You look sick. Like, you really look sick. And so finally I've put on that bit of weight again that makes me feel healthier. But it took me a while. And I was hesitant to talk about it today because I know that there are people out there that are like, oh my God, she lost weight and she's a model and her body looks fit and she's complaining about it. And you know what? I'm not here to please everyone. That was my experience and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone.
People are always shaming either you're too fat, you're too skinny, you're too this. It's just what we've learned, I think. Also, Dale especially was in social media for so long. It's just like people comment when they have their own insecurities and that's it. Like we all have our own insecurities, but at the end of the day, we need to respect other people's choices and celebrate their wins. And we have no idea what they're going through. So we need to be kind, especially in motherhood. We really need to be kind. There's just so many things that can kind of like be something that you're struggling with. And, you know, I think body image is so interesting because the second you get pregnant, it's always like, oh, you look so good. You're just belly. You're na. And then the second you're postpartum, you know, I'm getting a lot, oh my God, you look so good. How did you just have the baby 2 months ago? And when I don't get that, I'm like, oh my God, do I really look bad? Because it's so common for people to say it that I'm like, when someone doesn't say it, I'm like, oh, I must be like really big right now. You know, it's just like such a mind fuck, this whole body image stuff, especially in this pregnancy and postpartum phase. Like, why are people commenting on our bodies?
Totally.
And it's become so normal.
Yeah,
there should be a rule, like no positive or negative comments about how I look after having a baby.
I feel like when you are pregnant, it opens a can of worms for your body to be like an open discussion for people.
Yes.
They think they can touch your belly. They think they have access to talking about it, sharing about it. And like, I know it's exciting because we're growing a human, but there is a lot that comes with it that we internalize. And it's the first time that a lot of us have had these body changes. And I've been in social media on fitness and wellness for a really long time. And that was the first time that I really saw my body change. But it also like healed a part of me because the girl who was obsessed with going to the gym, obsessed with not gaining any weight, you know, eating right, being so tiny was definitely filling out a little more for me. And I think there's a part of me that feels like it was kind of like, I don't know the right word for this, but it was kind of like this freedom. Like, oh my gosh, like I'm a mom of 2 now. Who gives a shit? Like, I'm not going to be that person that I was. Sure, I want to work towards getting more fit. And as I'm 6 months now and I'm going to get more into it, but like, it was just this like release of like, why am I gripping onto this so tight when I'm literally a mom and there's so much more to it.
Again, it's permission, like just permission to be you and to focus on things that actually really matter more than how many inches are on your waist.
And like we're girl moms. Like I do not want my daughter looking in the mirror commenting on her body. That's, by the way, what stopped me when I was in a massive spiral with postpartum with my first. My sister said to me, would you want Gemma speaking to herself like that? And I was like, whoa.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
I gotta stop.
It's actually funny that you say that. It reminds me that in that first mental shift that I did in the beginning when I was so anxious, I actually I wrote out a list of things of how I would want Stella to see the world. And I made it the screensaver of my phone. And that kind of brought me back. Like that is a tool, an accessible tool that I would recommend to people if they're trying to shift their mindset in pregnancy or honestly in any phase of life, is to kind of write out these intentions. Like for me, it was through the eyes of Stella, and I put it as your screensaver. And I think that was like one of the really, really
that's a really
incredible,
good, like, tangible
that's a great tip.
Yeah.
This was so incredible. Thank you so much for sharing so vulnerably and openly with us and helping to kind of normalize a lot of these issues that you faced. And yeah, I know this will make a lot of people feel less alone. I really, really admire the work that both of you do, and it's truly an honor to be here. This is my first podcast. Oh my goodness, this is huge. Okay, where can everyone find you?
I would say on Instagram is definitely the best way for now, but there are some things in the wings that I will share on Instagram.
Okay, wait, what's your handle?
At Adrianna Bach.
Okay, we will link in the show notes, but thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, guys.